But one of the ways they rigged the primary was the beginning of the 2016 primary. They front loaded all of the southern states, which are heavily black voters, in front. Early on. And that disadvantaged Bernie Sanders because Bernie Sanders was not really a name well known in black community in South Carolina, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia. I could go on and on. The Clintons, right or wrong, were a name pretty known in the African American community. And honestly, older black women, by and large, were very, very strong and loyal to the Clintons and Hillary Clinton. Well, now Bernie Sanders is known nationally. There's obviously a hell of a lot of propaganda going on already with CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, which I'm going to get to in a minute. But Bernie Sanders is a known quantity now. So he knows, as a white person, I'm not going to speak here and condescend. And Ty will join me in a few minutes. I'm not going to speak and condescend about, Bernie's policies will actually disproportionately help black people. It doesn't really matter what a white person says. Black people are like white voters too. They care about, is somebody actually fighting for them economically? They care about a higher minimum wage. They care about health care. They care about education being affordable. They care about these things. They also have different desires and different needs than white people. Safety, equality, equal opportunity, not getting shot wearing a hoodie, and these things. But I think what Bernie Sanders this time is going to do is really, really, really aggressively go in to those African American communities and not pander to them. Not be like other Democratic candidates that just go into churches and, around election time, because we see that. The Democratic Party largely goes into black communities during election time, tells them they're going to lift, spread the oceans and finally fight for them. Then black people elect Democrats, and then the Democrats never do anything for them. I think what Bernie Sanders is going to do is instead of talking differently to black communities, I think he's going to, then he does the white communities or the Northeast or whatever. I think he's just going to go into black communities more. And I wanted to show you a clip. Because the national media didn't really cover this. Most candidates that lose a nomination, most candidates that lose the presidency, they kind of like lick their wounds and don't do much for a few years. Bernie Sanders, since losing the nomination in 2016, which frankly was totally rigged against him, and I think he would have beat Donald Trump. I think the polling shows he would have beat Donald Trump. Bernie Sanders has been barnstorming the country. So here is a clip from Bernie Sanders. I think it was in 2017 when he went down to stand with the workers down in Mississippi who were on strike at the Nissan factory. Here we go.
I don't have to explain to anybody here what's been going on in our country, in Vermont, in Mississippi, all over this country for 40 years. And what's been going on is the great middle class of this country has been shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. In this state of Mississippi, in the wealthiest nation in the history of the world, 30% of the beautiful children are living in poverty. In America, half of older workers have nothing in the bank as they prepare for retirement. In this country, moms and dads can't afford quality child care for their kids. And we have teachers here who are working 2 or 3 jobs in order to make a living. This is America. This is the greatest country in the history of the world, and all of our people deserve decent wages and decent benefits. What this struggle is about is a struggle for dignity. What Nissan understands, what many of your state elected officials understand who are siding with Nissan, is that their preference is that Nissan continue to make huge profits. Nissan continue to pay its CEO $9 million a year. But somehow Nissan is unable to provide decent wages and decent working conditions here in Canton, Mississippi. So we say to Nissan, it's great that your CEO makes $9 million. It's great that you made $6 billion in profit, but you know what? Share some of that wealth with your workers. Now, the reason that we see opposition to unions here in Mississippi, and in fact all over the country, is because unions work in providing increased wages and benefits. Benny Thompson made this point, and it's a true point. If you are a member of a union in America, you are going to make 27% more on average than a non-union worker. If you are a member of a union, you're far more likely to have paid family and medical leave. If you are a member of a union, the likelihood is you're going to have a better retirement plan and a better health care plan than non-union members.
So I wanted to show you that clip. Is what the corporate media and the Democratic Party plutocrats and the DNC, what they want to frame this as. And I'm speaking as a white person. So if you're an African American, you're perfectly welcome to disagree with me in the super chat. If I see your comment, I'll read it. But what they don't understand, and I don't think this is a racist or thing to say, or this is not a sexist thing to say, this is just facts. It's not enough. It doesn't make you a qualified candidate or the candidate of the moment because you're black. That doesn't mean that you represent the voting base of the Democratic Party. You always hear this corporate talking point in CNN and the New York Times. You know, Bernie's kind of out of step with the changing demographic, the changing face of the Democratic Party. But just because a face looks different than Bernie Sanders, just because a gender is different than Bernie Sanders, just because an age is different than Bernie Sanders, doesn't matter. Do you know what proves that? Bernie Sanders' predominant voter in 2016 was 18 to 34. 18 to 34. So they don't look like Bernie Sanders. Many of them were women. Many of them were black, which the corporate media wouldn't tell you. Bernie Sanders beat Hillary Clinton among African Americans under the age of 30. He also won Latinos under the age of 30. So this notion, being black doesn't mean you're in step with the Democratic Party. I'll give you an example. I liked Stacey Abrams' speech where she gave a reaction to the State of the Union. Okay, that's great. I like her. She made history as the Democratic nominee for governor in Georgia. Frankly, she won the election. It was stolen from her, which I covered. But on policy, Stacey Abrams is kind of slightly left of center. She's not capital P progressive. She's not pushing hard for Medicare for all. She's not pushing hard for free public college. She's not pushing hard for ending private prisons and all these things. So that doesn't make her a bad person. That doesn't mean she couldn't be a candidate for governor. She wouldn't be a better better governor in Georgia than that horrible, horrible, corrupt man that became governor. But just because she is black does not mean she is automatically in step with Democratic voters. Do you know what shows what candidate is in step with the Democratic Party's voters or voters overall? It's not what color is their skin. It's not what body parts they have. It's not how old they are. Is read the polls. Read the polls. Read the polls. I don't know, James, what was his name? James Carville said it's the economy, stupid. Read the polls. Because I can tell you, I've been to Flint, I've been to East Chicago, I was just in Detroit, I've been to Chicago. I've been to St. Louis. I've been to Alabama. I've been to a hell of a lot of predominantly African American communities. It's not anecdotal. I have interviewed probably at this point hundreds of black people, activists, citizens. I'm not speaking for black people. I recognize my white privilege, but I will tell you this. The majority of these people, okay, like the policies that Bernie Sanders is advocating for. The majority of these people, when I just went to Detroit to cover General Motors laying off 15,000 people after a $51 billion bailout from the federal government, after saving $514 million from Trump's tax giveaway, after making $8.1 billion, and that reporting was made possible by you. That reporting was made possible by you, by being members, by GoFundMe. Ty and I were just there. You might not even have known we were there because YouTube didn't show you. Those videos are up on this channel as well as statuscoup.com. The point is, those black union workers that I spoke to, those black auto workers that I have spoken with, those black community activists in Flint, Detroit, this and that, they don't automatically love Kamala Harris. Want to know how I know? Because I've asked. A lot of them actually criticize black political leaders on the local level for selling them out. So being black, if you're Kamala Harris, or being a woman, if you're Elizabeth Warren, or being what's this guy's name? The mayor of South Bend, Indiana, Pete Buttigieg. He's 37. None of that shit matters anymore. And the Democratic Party so wants to run on identity politics. Do you want to know why? And by the way, I will argue with anyone who says the phrase identity politics is racist. Because when I've said identity politics in the past, it's been racist. No. Identity politics is a way to deflect, distract from the actual policy issues, which are the majority of this country is living paycheck to paycheck. Half the country is near or at the poverty level. The majority of this country cannot afford a $400 emergency. CEOs in this country now make 300 times their workers. That's not a democracy. That's not a republic. That's an oligarchy. And frankly, if you go to community after community like I do, we are living in a mafia system. And that's why the corporate media plays identity politics. That's why you want to talk about free airtime. CNN gave Donald Trump, I believe it was $3 to $5 billion in free airtime. Well, have you noticed how much free airtime they've given Kamala Harris so far? What's so interesting to me is, you start seeing Kamala Harris 24 hours after she announces, get a 1-hour infomercial. I mean, that was an embarrassment, CNN's town hall with her. They didn't ask one question about why she didn't prosecute Steve Mnuchin. They let her basically skate around on Medicare for All. They didn't point out, hey, like in December last year, like 2 months ago, you were for free public college. So why is it now debt-free college? Maybe because Hillary Clinton's donors were unhappy with her? Why is it that 6 months after becoming a senator in California, you were meeting with Hillary Clinton's top donors in the Hamptons? Why is it that if you're for Medicare for All, as you say, Senator Harris, I feel very strongly about it. Well, you didn't feel strongly about it when you were running for California senator. If you live in California and are watching, it was up for possibly becoming law in California. It passed the California House, single payer. California would have been the first state in the country to have a state single payer system. Kamala Harris, crickets on single payer when she was running. Now all of a sudden she's running for president. Kamala Harris loves single payer. And I'm not going to name who, but I asked a pretty high-level source in California. She's a member of the union movement there. She was very active in the fight for Medicare for All. I said to her, hey, I'm doing some research. I can't find anything. Did Kamala Harris mention Medicare for All when she was running for Senate in California? Was she for Medicare for All? The person wrote back to me, of course not. Are you kidding? She'll say anything now. Well, that about says it all, right? That about says it all.